Well, I'm going to recap for Nancy anyway. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. So in this series, we've had 5 lessons before this one. We're studying, of course, the 10 Commandments, and the 10 Commandments have 4 commandments that deal with God and honoring God. Have no gods before me. Don't make any idols. Don't misuse His name, and honor the Sabbath day. Then it also talks about the other 6 commandments. Talk about our relationship with other people, and so it starts at home. Honor your parents. And then it talks about honoring life, all human life. And then last week, Ricky Hopper taught the lesson about honoring marriage. And so there are 3 of these 10 commandments, the last 3, that deal with the actions, the right actions toward the property and the reputation of other people. We can do a lot of bad things just because what we say about people and how we treat their property. And so we're going to talk about that today. So I was talking about integrity, and there are hundreds, if not thousands, of buildings across the United States and around the world that collapse. You've seen, how many have you ever seen where they collapse a building on purpose? Where they put the charges in the different places around the building, and when they shoot the charges, it just falls.
It implodes.
It implodes. And today, in cities, when they implode buildings, they have other buildings right on either side of the building that they implode. So they've got to do it so that it doesn't go out. It just goes right down. So they're expert at that. That's pretty awesome. They do bridges that way too. But sometimes when it snows for the first time on a new building, especially in the north where they have a lot of snow, buildings that don't have structural integrity collapse on themselves without any explosive charges. And it's a matter of integrity. Integrity is what makes it hold together as it should. And integrity in our Christian life is what helps us to hold together. So do you have any people, no, that's not the right way to ask that question. Who in your life has been an example of integrity?
Repeat that, please. I'm sorry, my son was being loud.
Okay. Who in your life has been an example or a model of integrity? Still having a hard time hearing me, Nastasia? Nope.
Heard you. Miss Gloria Carlton is someone that I hold highly esteemed, and is just someone who's always about, keeping things forward, being honest, being kind, but being honest about things. And just no matter where she is or who she's around, she is the same. There's nothing that she holds secret about herself. And when I see her, I don't see just her. I see Christ in her, just pouring out.
Okay. Nancy, how about you?
Well, first person that came to my mind was you.
Oh, don't say me.
That's so sweet. I wanted to say my husband, but I didn't want to be cheesy.
I don't mind being cheesy.
Well, I think that Nancy would be right up there at the top of my list, and my parents, and Dewey Jones. Those folks I remember as being models of integrity. And on the Nastasia, do you have a book, a pupil's book, a personal study guide for this?
I do not.
You don't? Okay. you can get one as an app from an app on your phone from Lifeway. You have to buy it, but
Okay.
not the app, but the Bible study guide.
Okay.
So anyway, these are the things that are there. Is it talks about the importance of integrity and commitment to Christ, and for example, the Bible talks about we never know who's watching. There was an example in the pupil's guide, the personal study guide. It talks about a bus driver, and the preacher is riding the bus. This must have been a long time ago, or maybe it was in a large city. And so when he got on, he paid the driver, and the driver gave him change. And when the change came back, the pastor looked down at his hand and he saw he had 50 cents too much. So he went up to the driver and said, "Hey, you paid me too much, and here's the 50 cents back." And the driver said, "Well," he said, "Pastor, I was in your congregation yesterday and I heard you preach about honesty, and I was just going to see if you were going to be honest and practice what you preach." So even if nobody is watching,
Sneaky.
yeah, even if nobody's watching, we need to practice integrity. We need to be what we say we are. Conducting ourselves honorably and with integrity is at the heart of two of the two commandments, the 10 commandments. Do not steal and do not give false testimony against your neighbor. Another aspect of this is lies. Lies have a way of coming back on us. For this reason alone, we ought not to lie. But above all that, we need to live with integrity, because our lives have been given to us as a way of showing glory to God. And we glorify God and advance His kingdom when we're truth tellers rather than when we're liars. And when we're liars, we're modeling Satan rather than modeling God. Let me ask another question. What are some ways that our culture downplays or overlooks sins like lying and stealing? What are some ways that our culture downplays sins like lying and stealing?
Our Southern charm, I guess, as we were raised with white lies, that you're just being kind. You just don't want to hurt their feelings. So it's okay to just tell a little white lie, when in truth is a lie is a lie.
Yeah, and the little white lies grow up to be big dirty lies.
Yeah.
Let me ask you another question. Well, nope. We should be people of integrity in our actions and in our speech. And so we're going to look at chapter 20 of Exodus, verses 15 and 16. So who wants to read that for us?
You shall not steal. You shall not give false testimony against your neighbor.
Okay. And so the do not steal is actually just two words in Hebrew. Never steal. And the two words for do not bear false witness turns out to be never lie. So these actions are the thief in some ways deprives the person of the use, or it diminishes the value of something that belongs to the other person. The foundation.
I think.
Go ahead.
I think part of what's happened in our society today is people's definition of a lie. I mean, not of a lie, of stealing. I think most people would say that extra 50 cents that the bus driver gave him, that wasn't stealing. I mean, the guy gave it to him.
Okay.
And
The bus driver has to give account at the end of the day for how many, because they sell tickets, and the tickets keep count of how many people ride the bus. And the bus driver would have to give account for how many people rode the bus and how much money he has. So if he has too little money, then he probably would have to make it up out of his pocket. Or
We can even steal someone's reputation,
yes,
or we can steal people's view of someone's character by what we say if we're not
it's
coming
true.
from a Christ-like heart and speaking about someone, or saying that they said something when it's not actually what they said, it's how we took it, that can negatively affect that person's reputation and how other people not only view them, but then view us.
That's true. That's true. And I'm going to move to the next one because I'm timing myself and trying to keep us into about 30 minutes or so. And we're already at 18 minutes and we're not even into the middle of the lesson. So this time we're going to look at verse 17. Who wants to read that?
I will. You must not covet your neighbor's house. You must not covet your neighbor's wife, male or female servant, ox or donkey, or anything else that belongs to your neighbor.
Okay. So what is the sin he's talking about?
Jealousy and desire of things that we don't have.
Okay. What is that called?
covetousness.
Covetous.
Discontent.
To covet. To covet. To desire something that is not ours. When we focus on the wrong things, contentment doesn't rest on these things. Contentment is realizing God has met your needs, and you add to that the realization, gratitude. And here's some things about contentment. Contentment is being just as happy driving an old jalopy as you think you'd be driving a brand new Mercedes. In both cases, you have transportation. Contentment is taking as much pleasure in living in a small apartment as if you lived in a very large house. In both cases, you have a roof over your head. Contentment, and I don't know about this one, contentment is enjoying a hot dog as much as a T-bone steak. In both cases, you're not starving. I think I'd rather have something besides a hot dog myself. I wouldn't eat a hot dog.
My son would argue that one.
Yeah. Now, I'm not saying that I have to have a steak, but, sometimes if you're eating leftovers, it's be a whole lot more fun to do something else. But in both cases, you have something to eat. You're not starving. And then contentment is being just as satisfied wearing clothing from a thrift store as you would be decked out in some fancy outfit from a department store. In both cases, you have clothes on your back. So when we live in a contented mindset, we're acknowledging the goodness of God and his provisions. Contentment is realizing that God has given us what we have, and everything that comes to us comes through his loving hand. So for us to covet what someone else has, no matter what it is, their house, their life, their job, their car, their spouse, their children, all of those things it's to say to God, if we covet, we're saying to God, you know, this is not good enough. I think I need better than this, or I need different than this. And so what are some practical steps we can take to prevent coveting in our lives? Are there any?
Again, a
I think
habit of gratitude.
Oh, that was my answer.
Oh, well then you say it.
No, you go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, just I struggle with this sometimes. You know, I get the oh woe is me mentality, and just really whenever I feel down about something, I've been lately trying to change my mindset. You know what? I'm thankful that I am able to experience this. That even, you know, we shouldn't just thank him in the high times in our life, but even in the struggles and the suffering as well, we should praise him in those times. And so just being thankful, God, thank you for this situation, because of my situation, I will learn from it and be able to glorify you in helping someone else through it. Just forming a habit of gratitude, of verbally speaking to him, because if we do that, then that can change into rather than a habit, it can just change into our natural day-to-day life.
And not just situations, but just ordinary things that we see every day, as well as the spectacular, you know, the changing leaves and
Lord, my son has been really back talking me lately, and I'm struggling with this, but I praise you and thank you for the opportunity to be a mom and learning patience.
Yeah, that's a way. Well, the thing that, and this goes right along with what you're saying. You remember in the hiding place, Corrie ten Boom and her sister are in the prison camp, and they have, of all of the things to have, they had fleas. You remember
yes.
that?
Yeah.
Anybody tell it to us?
Yeah, the place was just covered in fleas. Their beds, their clothes, everything. And then they found out that the guards were not coming into the room where they lived to inspect or whatever because of the fleas. And because the guards were not coming in, they could keep their Bible in there and they could have Bible studies and things.
So
they
I don't know if it
thank
was
God for the fleas.
Yeah, I don't know if it was her sister that told her or if she told her older sister. I think it's the sister told her that we should leave.
I think so.
Leaving for the fleas. And that's when they, you know, realized that there was a blessing with all of that. So I'm sure it was still uncomfortable. Fleas like to chew on you and itch and all of that. So, but still, they learned that secret of gratitude and being content in where God has put us. So this is contentment also keeps us from stealing. Do you remember the story of Achan in the book of Joshua? It's in chapter 7. It was when they conquered Jericho, and this man named Achan saw some gold and silver and some clothing that he liked a lot. And the rule was with Jericho that everything was to be dedicated to God for destruction. So they burned it all up. But Achan saw these things and he decided, you know what, I could use a good change of clothes. I could use a little bit more gold and silver. And so he took it and hid it in his tent. And after that, they went on to attack the next city, and they were defeated. It was Ai was the name of the city. And when Joshua came, he was crying out to God and saying, Lord, we don't understand. Why did you let us be defeated? And so because of that, God said, get up off your face. There's been sin within the camp. And so they traced it back. They went directly to Achan, and Achan and his family died because of his disobedience. But what was it that motivated him to put his hand out and take what belonged to God? It was covetousness, the desire to have something that doesn't belong to you. And so contentment is one of the things that will help us. Contentment is the key to living a life of integrity because it provides the security necessary to rest in the reality of the moment. Yeah, I thought that was a good quote.
We've been studying Acts, and it reminded me a few weeks ago, we studied Ananias and Sapphira in chapter 5. And, you know, this is the time where the believers were selling their possessions and sharing a portion with others. And Ananias and Sapphira, what gets me the whole point is, you know, nobody told them that they had to sell everything.
Right.
They had the choice to give what they could or share what they felt necessary, but their integrity was challenged because they sold their stuff and then they only gave some of it. And when they were asked, is this all of it or is this just some? They said, oh no, this is everything. And Ananias dropped dead there for his lying and his, you know, lack of integrity. And then his wife comes in later and they ask her, you know, was this the whole amount? And she as well says, yes, it was, because her and her husband were in cahoots. And she dropped dead. And it all comes down to the heart. This is obviously an extreme, but the Lord is capable of all things, but just really showing they had a choice. We have a choice of what we share and what we say, but I mean, if we're not honoring God, there are consequences for having a lack of integrity.
Yes. And I remember somebody asked the question one time, how much is your integrity worth? You know, some people, their integrity is worth just a few cents. And some people it's worth, you know, a few dollars. So that's a good question too. How much is your integrity worth? And if you ask that question when you're thinking about, you know, especially taking something or saying something, or then it helps to give us a safeguard to say, okay, do I want to think that this is how much my integrity is worth? Is my integrity worth $10, $15? You know, the bad guys in the movies always say, do what?
A ticket for speeding.
Yeah, well, there might be a good reason to speed. If you're late. No, there's not a good reason for speeding. You should leave on time. But the bad guys in the movies always say, everybody's got a price. But if you have integrity, you don't have a price. So, moving on to Psalm 37, we're going to look at verses 1 through 6. And at first you might think, well, why are they including this? We're talking about covetousness. We're talking about desiring something that belongs to somebody else. How does that fit in? Anybody want to read verses 1 through 6 of Psalm 37?
I can. Don't worry about the wicked or envy those who do wrong, for like grass they soon fade away, like spring flowers they soon wither. Trust in the Lord and do good, then you will live safely in the land and prosper. Take delight in the Lord, and he will give you your heart's desires. Commit everything you do to the Lord, trust him, and he will help you. He will make your innocence radiate like the dawn, and the justice of your cause will shine like the noonday sun.
Okay, so these words from King David capture the heart of the commandment not to covet. When we when we get agitated by evil doers, how is that coveting? Well, hello, Casey.
Hey,
I didn't see you. I was looking down.
I am. I'm always just right on the other side of the wall cooking lunch at this time. So I usually get lunch just about done or on simmer, and then I come and join y'all every week. So
now we know. Yeah. Well, we were talking about covetousness, and from Psalm 37. How is it that if we get agitated because of evildoers, how is that coveting?
It's us saying, God, why aren't you, why are you blessing them instead of me? You're coveting that blessing that there's just like, God, they're ruthless scoundrels like Zacchaeus and the crowd. Why is he going to that sinner's house? Why not us? I'm better than him.
When we are agitated by evildoers and they seem to be doing well, even though we're not, where is our focus?
on ourselves.
No. We're talking about covetousness. What should our focus be?
Our focus
I'm
should
scared
be
to
on
answer.
doing, it says, trusting in the Lord and doing good, doing what he is, being obedient to him and his word rather than to our own.
Right. And so our focus should be on God, on what he wants, on how to please him. When we're focused on evildoers, our focus is on them, not on God. And
Well,
so
it's also on us wanting what they have.
right.
That's what I meant.
What is that other psalm? It's Psalm 73 is a great psalm and a great message. Psalm 73 was written by the man who was the music leader at the temple. He was the one, he stood up there and he led the hymns, and in this case, the Psalms. And so he led the hymns, led the music. And he says, my foot almost slipped when I considered wicked people. And the picture is of this man, he's looking out across the congregation as they're singing, as they're chanting. And he sees people that he knows good and well, they're not godly people. And he's thinking, why have I tried to be a godly person? Why have I even, look how these people are. They are well off. They don't ever have a need. They don't get sick. And he runs down the list of all the things that seems like God is blessing them. And at the end, he says, I thought like this. And he said, if I had talked like this, I would have betrayed God's people. But at the end of Psalm 73, he says, I couldn't get my mind around all that until I went into the temple of God, till I went into worship. And when I went in to worship God, I saw that God's judgment falls. It's like the old farmer. There was a farmer that was a non-Christian and a farmer that was a Christian. And the non-Christian farmer. And I'm tired. I preached 2 times.
That's us. We're non-farmer Christians.
Yeah, we're not. The non-Christian farmer had a bumper crop, and something happened that the Christian farmer, his crop didn't turn out so well. And so the the non-Christian farmer was giving the Christian farmer a hard time about it. He said, see, you say you believe in God. I don't believe in God. Look, I had a bumper crop and yours didn't do so well. And he said, well, God doesn't always settle his books in the fall. God doesn't
Say that
always,
again.
God does not always settle his books in the autumn, in the fall. So that's what the guy in Psalm 73 was saying, that God settles his books. There's going to be a reckoning. There's going to be a judgment. And it may come at the end of time. It may come at the end of our lives or their lives. But God is keeping score. And those that focus on him, he blesses us. And if we reject him, then we are going to suffer that judgment. What evidence have you seen that God's commands are for our own good? You know, these 10 commandments, Ted Turner said, why do you have to have one on adultery? And there are other people that have said, why is that commandment in there? Paul said, I would not have known sin if it were not for the law that says, do not covet. That seems like a very small thing, but covetousness is the root of adultery. Covetousness is the root of stealing. Covetousness is the root of lying about our neighbors. Does he mean just our neighbors?
Everybody.
Yeah, it's about everybody. So what is some evidence that you have seen that God's commands are for our own good?
Had the discussion with my son a few weeks ago. We were covering honoring God and honor your father and mother,
Mm-hmm.
and not desiring things for yourself. You know, you have to honor mommy and daddy and God by making good choices. You don't just do things because you want to do it. You make choices to do things because it's what you should do, what is right by God and by your parents. And he goes, but why? But I want to do things the way I want to do it.
That's honest.
So, yes.
That's the problem. Sometimes he's too honest.
So we are definitely working through that. I may need to use today's lesson to explain a little bit more right now, like why do we not stand in front of the TV like that?
Yeah, like he was doing. Well, we're gonna wrap this up here, and under the Live It Out section, how will you actively seek to live a life of integrity? And there are three applications that they have here. One is check our words. Be aware of your words and actions this week. If you're tempted to say something or do anything that is not honest and truthful, stop yourself. Commit to being a person of integrity. So that's one activity. Keep track of your words. Be aware of your actions. And as you get to the end of the day, maybe think back through your day and say, did I act like a person of integrity today? Or did I just do it because I wanted to do it? As Ezekiel put it so well and so plainly. So check your words. Secondly, 2 Corinthians chapter 9, verse 8. It says this, and God is able to make every grace overflow to you, so that in every way, always having everything you need, you may excel in every good work. So they're asking us to make this a verse that we memorize and apply as we're going through our day-by-day life. Memorize. Memorize 2 Corinthians 9:8. Okay? And then the third one, to encourage, be an encourager. We could all use some positive affirmation in the area of integrity and contentment. How could you encourage somebody that you see them doing something that does not show integrity, does not show contentment at all? How can you encourage them?
And I could hand
fair.
select some pointed Bible scriptures, encourage them to read those to persuade them.
What?
I was making a joke. I said I could hand select some very pointed Bible scriptures and encourage them to read those.
Mhm. Would that be an encouragement, or would that be something else?
Doing what you want.
I'm being
Facetious.
yeah, facetious. I'm being devil's advocate at the moment.
Yeah, it sounds like that would be reproof rather than encouragement.
Maybe giving a little bit of grace, mercy, and compassion for someone when they fall short, but in the same time, though we might bring light to it, maybe they don't necessarily realize that it is something that is wrong. But speaking in love and honesty and directing it back to these scriptures and showing, this is what God desires from us. Grace and mercy and love go a lot farther than giving lectures.
Than a stick.
And so when we show God's love, it needs to be the way He would show it, rather than the way that we want to make the point come across. So being calm, being loving, but at the same time being direct, not having any little white lies, not trying to pad things up so it easier to say, but just coming. We don't want to love people to hell. We don't want to continue making them feel okay about a sin or anything, because if they get comfortable, yes,
being an enabler.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So we want to love people towards Christ.
That's right.
One of the things that we could do is that we can be honest with them about ourselves.
Yeah.
We're human just like they are. And so
right.
we can come encouraging them by saying, hey, I've struggled with maybe a similar situation or this particular aspect in my life. How can I pray for you? How can I walk alongside you in this moment, in this time? Instead of like, hey, you need to straighten up.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm struggling too. How can we work together? So that we may
Hold
be
each other
better,
accountable.
accountable, so we can be a better reflection of Christ.
That's true, and I think it's too easy for us to talk to somebody as though, we used to struggle with that, but we don't have a problem anymore. We've arrived. We're at the top, and we don't have a problem. But all of us struggle with these things. And it's easy to say something about somebody without thinking. And I think that's a part of the key, is that we think about our words and think about what we're saying, as well as our actions and how we treat other people. Well, folks, that's the lesson. There are four commandments that talk about, wow, my fingers are disappearing here through the clouds. But in the 10 commandments, there are 4 commandments that talk about God. Okay. 4 commandments that talk about God and how we relate to Him. We're to honor God by putting Him first, by not having idols, don't make any idols, and don't misuse his name, and honor the Sabbath. And then there are 6 commandments that talk about how we relate to people. But these 3 commandments at the end of the 10, maybe people consider those the least important, but they have a wide, they have a big influence in how we live and the way that we live today. Hope that you enjoyed the lesson. I just didn't get it all together, but did the best I could.
It was excellent.
I didn't want you to not have a Sunday school lesson today because I couldn't get it to record and put up there last week. So I said, no, I've got to do this, even if I'm having a hard time with it. So I hope
And you did it with such flair from a destination.
From a destination.
Yes, I have something to say about that. How come you're on the beach and I'm on the sofa?
Now, Miss
Sounds like
Nancy, don't be
coveting to me.
coveting where your
Don't be
husband
coveting.
is.
Sounds like coveting to me.
No, what I meant was you
Oh,
shouldn't
no.
be on the beach. You should be on this soft, the sofa and be comfortable like I am.
Nobody wants all that sand.
Brother Fred, I wanted to let you know that yesterday I went for the first time in 9 months back to Moyobamba to go and visit with the pastors and the leaders there where y'all came and served. And there's been quite a bit of growth spiritually in people there during this time of the churches, the temples being closed, that people have really got outside of their mindset of what is church, who is the church, where is the church. And so it's created some growth spiritually with some of the leaders there. And then also some generational growth in people that have come to the Lord, and people's reliance on the Holy Spirit and on prayer. A lot of really cool answered prayers during this time. But one pastor, a new pastor that I just barely got to start a relationship with right before the quarantine, I went to visit him in a town about 30 minutes away from there. And he said, well, brother, we continued to pray and fast together as the body during the quarantine, even though a lot of people said, well, we can't do anything, we can't do this. Well, we decided we would pray and we would fast during the quarantine. And did you know that those that prayed and fast with us, none of them got sick? But those that didn't pray and fast, they got sick and some of them died. And I said, well, I don't know exactly if I want to take much of a lesson out of that, but that's kind of scary. So he's a Pentecostal pastor, so he was very vibrant about it as he was standing. I mean, if you could just imagine his intensity on his face, and some of them died. And I was like, oh my. So the week before we had done Ananias and Sapphira with the house church here, and so I was like, oh man, what are we putting together here? So tell people if they don't start showing up to Sunday school, some of them might get sick. And
Well,
so
I think today's turnout probably has more to do with the teacher than it has to do with the time or the venue. I just appreciate y'all being here and hope that you enjoyed it, and it was a blessing. It was a blessing to me.
Yeah.
So
Always a blessing.
I'm going to
Good.
call this.
It's always good to see you guys, Lori.